Hey everybody, and welcome to the latest Brandwatch webinar. I'm Will McInnes, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about something that's very dear to my heart as a marketer, which is about how do we connect social to dollars. So what are we going to do in this webinar is basically outline Brandwatch's direction and then come on to the juicy bits, which are some practical examples of how some of our clients and sophisticated brands are starting to use social intelligence to really solve problems around the return on investment of their marketing dollars. So today, please don't be shy. We would love your participation as always. There's a hashtag for today's conversation, which is hashtag BrandwatchTips, and there's also the chat function in GoToMeeting, which we're running the webinar with. So pop your questions in there along the way, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end. What we've been doing here at Brandwatch is, I think we're pretty well known in the social media monitoring and analytics world, but we're at a point now where, as a global company, we've got the opportunity to think about what do we do next? And that direction really matters to you if you're on this webinar, because it's about where do we see the market going, which is interesting if you're working in this domain, and what are we committing to? So our founder and CEO, Giles Palmer, has always been inspired by the writing of the groundbreaking sci-fi author Isaac Asimov. And one of the things that Giles talks about is how do we create a new kind of intelligence? And what that's helped us realize is that although on a day-to-day level we may just be running reports or pulling off data that helps us answer a particular question, what we're really about at Brandwatch is we want to make people smarter. So our products, hopefully, on a good day, are making you smarter, making your organization smarter. But also, as an employer, what we've seen is people inside the company really developing their careers. And I know I've got smarter since I joined Brandwatch. So that's what we're about. That's our vision. And you know yourself, working in this domain, that social has been changing the fabric of society. It's been changing how we as humans at scale in civilization in the 21st century communicate and interact with one another. It's a bit of a no-brainer, but maybe it's important to restate when we're looking at these kind of big picture themes before drilling into specifics, is that social has changed our lives. Technology has changed our lives in families, in villages, in towns, in companies, in government and in business. The way that we protest, the way that we make our voice heard, the way that we shape our own opinions and consensus. And there's promise. If you're an optimist, if you care about the future, then it feels like at times we can use social to really change things, to really demand change and actually change things. And so whether it's when the Turkish government tried to ban Twitter, or whether it's the campaigning here in the US recently around some of the incidents with the police and communities, social gives us new tools, new frameworks, and new ways to exercise our power. But you're here and you're probably at work, or you're thinking about work, and social has changed the way we do business too. This is a photo from one of the Brandwatch masterclasses. If you're a Brandwatch customer, please do come along. We love to spend time helping you learn how to get more value from the platform. This is in New York, and we're talking here with a bunch of people who are all working on a new kind of approach to business that has been enacted because of the availability of social. But the reason we wanted to talk about ROI today, the reason we wanted to talk about connecting social to dollars, which is the commitment we've made to you, is because it's time to go beyond. We feel fundamentally at Brandwatch we need to push further. There's a lot more to do. There are bigger challenges and problems to solve. So it's time to go beyond. Go beyond what, you may ask? Well, we want to go beyond a couple of things. We want to go beyond keywords. So whether you're using Brandwatch or one of its competitors, you are probably limited today to a keyword-centric view of the social web. If you are trying to solve problems around how impactful was our sponsorship investment, or what is the top 3 product features that cause our customers discomfort and dismay, then you are probably looking to answer that challenge with a keyword lens. You look through Brandwatch or other platforms to find answers by setting up search queries. And that's great, and we've got loads more planned there. But it feels like the social web and the web in general and our use of the internet has moved beyond that. So we need to be thinking about places, we need to be thinking about people, we need to be thinking about the visual web. So we want to go beyond keywords, and that's one of the commitments we're making today. Secondly, we know that you in your organizations are pushing social much further than its original team, individual, department that was responsible for it. What we're seeing in our very biggest clients in multinational corporations and the agencies that work for them is that social is becoming distributed across the whole organization. There's a scale that's really exciting now, and hundreds or thousands of users are now receiving important, interesting information that can help them make decisions on a daily basis. So looking at this altimeter model, recognizing that social is becoming distributed across the organization, one of the things that we at Brandwatch want to do is lead the way in going further and doing this at scale. And on another webinar with one of our clients in the food and beverage category, this guy made a fantastic point to me, which I've been hammering home to anyone who'll listen since. And what he said is that whether it's reporting or research or something more specific like social intelligence, too often we get hung up on the what, the plain matter of facts, what happened, looking in the rear view mirror. And his point was there are three things that you can look at. You can look at the what, you can look at the so what, and you can look at the now what. And we at Brandwatch think that there's a really exciting framework. How do we start to look at the so what? What does it matter? What's the decision that you or your stakeholder internally is going to make based on that information? And the now what? What happens now? The impetus, the momentum, the moment. This is a really big opportunity. So those are three flavors of how we want to go beyond. And the claim that we're making here at Brandwatch and the promise that we're going to deliver against for our clients is that we're going to start connecting social to dollars. Because we know when we talk to our most senior clients and the people that work for them, that's the problem, that's the challenge. We know that 50% of our marketing works, we just don't know which 50%. And that, yes, that's a cliche, but I can say hand on heart as a CMO myself with a fantastic marketing team that answering that question is very valuable. So that's what we want to employ the intelligence that we're creating towards. What does that mean? It means that we're going beyond social media monitoring and social analytics and social data. We're wrapping it up, and we're doing it in a particular way, which is about enterprise social intelligence. So that's the category we believe we fit in, and you're going to hear us talking about more. And that's really about how do we understand the dollar outcomes from marketing in social. And that's really useful for you guys. So although it may sound like I'm talking about us, this is really all about what we give to you. So what is enterprise social intelligence? We've come up with just a quick definition, something nice and short, but I'm going to pick out the points of emphasis. So at Brandwatch, we believe that enterprise social intelligence enables valuable business actions. That's about the decisions, it's about the consequences. That's where the dollar returns show up. And you do that with enterprise social intelligence by surfacing and distributing social insights. So you do get the what and the so what, but it's at scale and it's in real time. And that's what we're excited about, is servicing hundreds or thousands of users and pushing information, pushing actionable insights to them into the palm of their hand. So if you've heard of our product, Signals, that's what that's all about. And if you've seen Visio, the command center product, that's what that's about. And we're not alone here. There are other smart people helpfully paving the way. Alison Smith, who's dedicated a large amount of her time to understanding this landscape, has come up with a very similar definition. Alison, I'm afraid ours is a bit shorter, which I think is better, but this is still a great definition. And I've included it here more for your reference in the slides that we'll send you afterwards than for right now. So that's what we think enterprise social intelligence is about. And the real value for you here is to also educate your stakeholders, to help them understand that we want to all get away from the what and we want to get into the so what and the now what. And that's valuable terrain for the whole of us. Now, there are a couple of things that we need to look at. If we are really going to solve the problem of ROI, we need to figure out how to do that. And there are tons of stats that we could have drawn for this, but we know all of us that return on investment, locating return on investment, being clear and confident about it, and sharing it convincingly with skeptical stakeholders and fellow co-workers is really tricky. This example from a Forrester study for our partner Spreadfast, as you can see, says that 74% of enterprise companies report that they use social marketing tactics to influence customers. But 75% of those report that the measuring of social marketing is difficult. Now, this is an interesting conundrum because it's a digital medium and it should be very, very trackable. Let's think about our cousins in the wider marketing family. Let's look at TV advertising, outdoor, experiential. In theory, those are fluffier. They should be less easy to measure. But those industries, those domains have done a better job of creating convincing and clear frameworks that allow their customers to invest and manage and measure. And we need to do the same using social for broad marketing problems. So at Brandwatch, we're not only interested in social media marketing, we're actually interested in marketing, but measured through social. When I was a kid, I did judo for a while, and the brilliant thing about judo is you turn the energy coming at you into the force that you use. We can turn that problem into an opportunity. The biggest challenge that we have is also our biggest opportunity. And there are some big convincing names weighing in on this. So this is a very fresh study here from McKinsey. You can find it online in their quarterly journal, July 2015. And in that article, in a very convincing, wide-ranging study, they have found that social recommendations, which is just one part of the whole of this, induced an average of 26% of purchases across all product categories. And I could show a Yelp logo here. I could show an Amazon reviews logo here. I could talk about LinkedIn endorsements. We could look at word of mouth in B2B conversations. There are lots of examples of how this happens. But the point is, this is our opportunity to show the real dollar impact using social as our giant fishing net, our giant petri dish that catches the responses to the impact of our marketing work. So we're coming up to the examples where I'm going to take you through how some of the clients are solving these challenges. Before that, I just wanted to break down enterprise social intelligence in case this modular approach helps you think about your work and your plans ahead. So at Brandwatch, we've broken enterprise social intelligence into 4 items, 4 really interesting, rich areas. Conversations is the keywords bit. So there's lots of good work to be progressed there. We can add new languages, we can add new geographical platforms that are popular in specific regions. We can get smarter and easier about how you can slice and dice that. But that's really the bit that this industry has done well. It's the keywords bit, the conversations. What we're getting really excited about at Brandwatch is the people lens. Looking at the social web, firstly, through the who, not the what. So instead of starting your journey through a series of keywords, what we're thinking about, and I'm kind of teasing a bit here because we have an announcement coming up, is how can you start your journey by thinking, okay, I'm interested in mums between the age of 25 and 35 who are interested in soccer and have kids in the USA. And then what are they interested in? Then what media do they consume? Then what topical content are they talking about? So it's taking a people-centric view. Who are they connected to? Who are they influenced by? And we're interested in doing that at scale because this is the enterprise social intelligence bit of it. It's the scale and real-time bit. So that could be really exciting. Thirdly, it feels like there's a real opportunity that you, the market, you, the customers and practitioners, are getting excited about, which is how do we bring a location aspect to this? How do we understand the difference between the performance of one retail outlet and another, using social as one way of understanding that? How do we understand regional variances in the views and perceptions towards our particular beer brand, or to the experience that people receive when they're in a car dealership? It feels like location is a big opportunity, whether it's Foursquare, Yelp, or relating weather and location data together. There's real interesting opportunities here, again, to zoom in on the ROI and to be clearer and more specific about how to improve the business returns. So that's places. And then fourthly, it's a no-brainer really, but if you think about the most recent generation of the social web, Pinterest, Snapchat, Tumblr, it's a much richer visual medium than ever before, enabled by bigger bandwidth speeds, enabled by mobile tablets. We're seeing that the social web is becoming a much more image and visual rich environment. And so we at Brandwatch, as well as our peers and competitors, are interested in how that aspect comes to life too. So maybe this will help you when you're thinking about your work, which is how much of the totality of this footprint are we currently investigating? And when we're searching for answers to the questions we want to solve, when we're looking to understand our performance, how much of that topography, what a lovely word, are we looking at? So let's break it down a bit. Classic keywords approach, some conversations. So here we can see this person, Rayburn, talking to Warby Parker, the e-commerce glasses retailer, about their experience. Pretty straightforward. Everyone on this webinar, no doubt, understands and does this to some extent. People, as I said, let's zoom in on audiences. Let's gather tribes, groups, demographics, segments. Let's do it at scale. Let's do it in a custom and tailored way. Let's really understand more about the people rather than getting to them through the stuff they're talking about. Thirdly, how far can we zoom in? You know, when we look broadly in marketing, we can see the beacon technology. We can see retailers like IKEA using Wi-Fi in store to understand how people move around and how they research. It feels like as the marketing community wants to get down to the nitty-gritty, and that's something that with social data we can do in a social intelligence platform like Brandwatch. So that's cool. And lastly, this is a photo from a friend of mine, Mark Pinson. He shared it on Instagram. It's basically a stream of brand love. All of the commenters absolutely love this classic vehicle. If you've not seen one before, it's a Land Rover Defender. It's a much loved vehicle in the UK in particular. Bulletproof motor vehicle. Not one person says the word Land Rover. So if we were taking a conversations and keyword-centric view of this, we'd be missing this vital piece of our footprint. We'd be missing this return on investment from our product design, from our advocacy program. So we really need to close that gap. If we get all of that in place, we can solve real business problems. We can start to really chip away at this, what's the return of my marketing problem? Because I can solve problems like, I don't know what people are saying about my brand. Well, that's pretty straightforward today with social analytics. I don't know how campaigns are performing in relation to competitors. Again, you can do that. And increasingly, we're seeing clients using this kind of conversations-centric view of the world to understand how their content marketing is paying off. So what content's resonating, what's generating returns for us. And a quick plug, the new Brandwatch links operator is fantastic for this. You'll pick up a good chunk percentage more of where your content is being shared that you wouldn't have previously. But the people is where we're heading at Brandwatch, and that's really interesting. So answering questions like, I don't understand who I should be targeting. What interests do these guys have? I do know who I should be targeting, but I don't know what's going to resonate with them. What's the difference between this particular demographic group and another when it comes to their interest in mortgages or pensions or savings plans? What language do they use to describe those products and services so that we can feed that back into our messaging and marketing? Who influences these guys? So there's lots of work been done in influencer, trying to understand influence in general, and it's a really, really tricky subject. But again, it's an interesting area of opportunity. And lastly, but perhaps the biggest one for me, is so much of our online advertising is wasteful. It's inefficient. So how can we be more precise using insights from social about where to invest our dollars? And I think that's a really big opportunity for us as a marketing family. The business problems in places are more specific. So let's zoom in. Let's do like a Google Street View. I don't know what the impact of our marketing is in relation to these key store locations, or these cities, or these regions. Wouldn't it be amazing to be able to show my client that, my internal client, or my client as an agency? I don't know which bars to target. I don't know which stores to target. How do I find out where the hip joints are, or the places with lots of footfall are? Can I use social as a quicker and cheaper way to answer that question and to target my field sales force, to be more precise? And as I mentioned previously, how do I adapt my messaging? We saw one of the Brandwatch clients in the UK using data from Brandwatch to understand how people felt about a beer brand city by city in the UK, and found very specific and particular differences in those perceptions, which really helped their client be smarter and more targeted about where to invest their marketing pounds. And then with images, as I mentioned, you're not getting the whole of your footprint, and that's a missing piece of the jigsaw, particularly when we all know that tweets perform better when they have images in them, when lots of our content might be shared, or our brand experiences. Let's think about product and customer experience. Very often, if I'm annoyed in store, or if someone's written my name wrong on the cup, or whatever the particular lull of the moment is, I might not always use text to describe it. Image might be the way that I'm transmitting that information. There's also a brand protection and risk element here, and that community is really interested in this technology. So those hopefully give you a flavor to some of the business problems that we want to solve. And then for your reference later, we've included some use cases that will come with the slides when we send them, and that breaks some of what I've just talked about in more detail. But I don't want to dwell too much because I want to get to these exciting examples. So I've anonymized these examples because that's what our clients want. And I've blended a couple of them. So this particular one is two very well-known car or auto brands that you would recognize. And they're both working with Brandwatch's social intelligence platform to understand some stuff. And I'm going to tell you a story about what they're doing. What they're doing is they've set up some queries. So using the conversations aspect, using keywords, they've set up some queries to look for what we call intent to purchase. And if you're not sure what that's about, search on the Brandwatch website and you'll find some articles and resources. It's really looking at language that indicates that someone is in the market. So I'm thinking about, has anyone got any tips for, I'm really attracted to this particular product. And they're looking for people talking about their cars and their competitors' cars. And the goal here, the business goal, is to signpost potential buyers to dealers and to get them into the funnel. So it's all about driving pipeline and making what they find on social really actionable. The outcome that they're looking for, which they can put a real dollar value against, is increasing car sales from test drives that were originated or influenced from social. And that's pretty cool. How did they do that? Well, they set up queries to locate social mentions that mention the car model names with phrases like test drive and the dealer's names. So quite sophisticated keyword Boolean strings inside Brandwatch. Then the enterprise social intelligence aspect of it is really about how do you do that at scale, because potentially lots of people are talking about this. So using rules and categories and tags, they've automatically filtered these conversations by color, by model, by brand, by dealer. But where it gets really cool is the two next aspects. They're using location. So they're using location because dealerships are local. So that brings in that next edge, that next frontier that really brings some new opportunities. So they're zooming into the location and they're providing to each dealership a pipeline of tailored and targeted potential buyers to engage with. That's cool. And then fourthly, in one instance, they're beginning to make a more direct tie between the actual buyer of the car and their social handle. So understanding from a social CRM point of view, who are our real customers and what is their ongoing experience and who are they connected to and how is their word of mouth going to drive other customers. So this is a really interesting kind of bleeding edge use case, but something that we at Brandwatch, and I'm sure peers in the rest of the industry, are interested in too. So that's one example that I think brings to life some of the elements of enterprise social intelligence. This second example is more of an advertising-driven use case. So this particular organization has a number of physical locations which happen to be theme parks, destinations that it wants to drive visitors to. What they're doing is they're using monitoring data from Brandwatch, but again with a very strong regional or location aspect to it, to understand how people in different regions in the USA are talking about their experiences. So it's using demographic information to look for a particular young family's demographic, and then looking at location relating to where they are near these destinations. And then thirdly, what are the topical, newsy, cultural, soundbitey aspects that this demographic is chatting about? So they're looking to cream off these insights about what this particular demographic are interested in and feed that into their programmatic advertising, so that the adverts that reach these people by region, by demographic, are tailored specifically to the insights that they've gathered in that particular area. And this is part of a fast-moving, very iterative, experimental digital strategy. And those of you who work with programmatic know that it's very much kind of exciting digital marketers, but there are still lots of question marks too. So we're interested to see how that social plus programmatic thing plays out. This third example is a very, very well-known retailer who has a reputation for world-class customer service in store. What they wanted to do was replicate that quality of customer service online through their e-commerce and their email marketing strategy. I think what they've done is incredibly intelligent. So what they have been doing is they've been collecting social data from the social web, primarily from Twitter, specifically where people mention the top brands that this retailer carries. So because they're a premium retailer, they're not competing on price, they're competing on service and on the particular brands that they stock. So they're interested in Patagonia or Burberry or whatever the particular high-end brand happens to be. Using social, they're collecting people talking about the brands they care about. They're then working with a third-party vendor, so not with Brandwatch, with a third-party vendor who, if you work with them, can take a list of social handles and can give you back, where they find a match, email addresses for a percentage, so for a subset of that total list. So they can say, of all the people talking about these brands, we have this many email addresses. And this retailer is then matching those email addresses to its own CRM to get a further reduced list. So you've now got a much smaller list of people, but it's much more impactful. If we're interested in the return on investment and the impact of our efforts, they now know what their customers and previously registered customers are talking about when it comes to these particular brands that they stock in the social web. And what this retailer has then been doing is using that to merchandise on the e-commerce site. So promoting items that you or I may have talked about more prominently on the homepage, perhaps sending us a coupon. And they've used this in their email marketing strategy too, with what the guy who was telling me about this said was jaw-dropping ROI. And I'm afraid I don't actually have the figures. I know that we would all love to get our hands on them. But I think this kind of level of precision, insight, intelligence, and being very, very actionable. So this is not looking in the rearview mirror. This is looking out the front of the car, to extend the metaphor, and really being very clear about the intended business goal. The fourth example is something and the fourth and final example is something we're seeing more and more of at Brandwatch, where our clients are coming to us and saying, the marketing team has told us that for the next 18 months, these 3 segments are the most important segments that we're targeting. So in one instance, it's the LGBT community. In another instance, it's Hispanic Americans. It could be any particular kind of demographic segment. But what they want to do is they want to use social insights and intelligence to understand much more about that segment. So how can we set up a custom tailored demographic? How can we then start to understand what they're interested in and test propositions and messaging and language to save wasted ad dollars and failed marketing campaigns? So it's all about improving marketing efficiency, which has a very clear path to return on investment. In particular, these particular clients have been using these custom demographics to then test advertising campaigns and to understand the feedback by segment. So how well did our Super Bowl ad play for that particular community? Was there something, a character, a message, a tone that didn't work? Or are we actually resonating with them? And this is why this is included is perhaps slightly less actionable than a couple of the other examples, but it's got a real scale about it. It's got a big marketing feel to it. And it feels like if we in the social community and in the sort of market research and insights community can fuse these two and give back to marketers a better way of understanding in advance and more quickly than traditional methods how messages, campaigns, products, experiences are resonating with customers, then we can close the loop more quickly and we can save money and time, which is very valuable indeed. So this is the first webinar in a few that we're going to be touching on return on investment. So setting up some of the themes and giving you some of the frameworks that we're interested in. But before we finish, just a couple of items on the future, and then we'll move to questions. So a quick prompt again, feel free to ask questions on Twitter. The hashtag is BrandwatchTips, or in the chat box in your GoToMeeting webinar panel. So a couple of things that we're looking at in the future. I've mentioned lots of stuff, but a few other flavors. We know that increasingly the smartest insights, the most actionable value is coming from when you or we mix social with non-social data, point of sale data, weather information. We've mentioned location several times today. What other data, what first-party data does your business or your client have that when fused with social you get really interesting information? Maybe it's inventory levels, maybe it's net promoter score and customer satisfaction. So we're interested in, and we're beginning to do this with Visio, our command center product, is allowing and enabling the fusion of non-social data with social data to start to understand correlations, causations, and play around and start to explore that territory. What other data is out there that's outside of your organization and ours? Is there census information? Is there liquor licensing information? Is there driver data? What public domain information could be fused to find really smart outcomes from social that deliver real business value? So that's one of the flavors. And then the second, before finishing for questions, is that our stronghold here at Brandwatch has been in the earned media space. And then in recent years we've added owned media to some extent with channels, for example. So you can set up a Facebook channel, a Twitter channel in Brandwatch. What we're really seeing, and it doesn't take any kind of genius to notice this, is a big shift in social towards paid. And that's an exciting opportunity for us and for the market and for you, the customers that we work with and our practitioners and experts, is how do we bring those together? How do we understand them in a more complete and joined up way? And that feels like a massive opportunity. So it's something that we have teams in Brandwatch working on today, and we'll be excited to share more with you in the future. And then lastly, a kind of note from our founder and CEO, I suppose, which is one of the ideas that he's been working on for a few ideas and wanted to get the rest of us excited about, has been thinking about everybody else. So how can Brandwatch and the intelligence that it permits go much further? How can it be more like Google Docs, where the product itself is instantly shareable and viral? How can we reach the next 5 billion of consumers that are expected to come online. So we're interested also, and you're going to see releases from us actually in the relatively near future, where we're going to be experimenting and pushing the boundaries of making this kind of value and resource much more distributable, much more accessible to many more people. So we think there's some really interesting stuff there, and we call that democratizing data, but that's really a story for another day. So thank you very much for your attention. Hopefully